Please excuse the really bad nails. My three chins and I welcome you. It's been a while since I've done a cooking video, but today we are going to be doing mushroom risotto. One of my favorites. It's been a while since I've made one, just because it yields a lot. Rice, right? It like doubles in size almost when you cook it. First things first, you need Arborio Rice. Okay. I've had a hard time actually trying to find this. Otherwise, I would have done a video sooner. But I just got this from my local, like, small market shop here. So I'm going to be just using like a cup of that because it's just for myself. So we'll see how much that yields. Thank you, Zach, for helping me try to find a wine. I don't drink alcohol. I can't. But because risotto, you're essentially cooking it down until the point where it absorbs everything, and so the alcohol definitely cooks out, which is therefore why I can eat it. I bought this Sauvignon Blanc. He recommended something in the $15 range. I've made this before with like those $6 little, it's like a wine cooler. Don't do that. Okay, it just tasted awful and I forced myself to eat it like Jim Gaffigan. Okay, so don't do that. One trick that I do like to use that I've heard from my local mushroom vendor, sound really bougie, really not, is actually using whatever chicken stock. This is actually 6 cups, so I have used about half so far. But actually like warming up, in this case, I'm going to use chicken stock to try and give the dish more flavor, and putting dried mushrooms actually into the chicken stock once it's hot. So I have 3 floating shiitakes, and my birthday last year, I got super bougie and I bought morels that were dried, which were stupid expensive because morels are only, I think you can only get them in season like once or twice a year, something insane like that. So I bought those dried, thinking, you know, at some point I should probably rehydrate them and make them into something yum yum, which is why I'm here. So really it just takes arborio rice, about 6 cups or so of chicken stock. You want to make sure that you have more stock than you think you need, because if you run out, then you're going to have to use water, which would be really bad. So don't be that person. And then you can be bougie like me. I'm trying this out for the first time, so we'll see how it turns out. But flavoring the stock with the dried mushrooms can only make the stock taste better. So half of the stock is actually the dried mushrooms that have been rehydrating for probably about 30 minutes in the hot stock, and then the rest of the stock is in this lovely container. I'm going to go ahead and use a shallot. Again, just me. You can use 2 if onions make you happy. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so all that I've done is just finely kind of diced one of the shallots. I have my butter out. I use this, however, it says only to use like I think like a tablespoon and a half, but screw the rules. I have all of my mushrooms kind of cut up, but not too finely, because I do kind of still want to tell that they're mushrooms, so you notice that the mushroom heads are still intact. All of my morels are kind of just like sliced through. I like to actually see like what kind of mushroom I'm eating and not just like purely, you know, diced up mushroom. One word of caution that I do have for shiitakes is they're very strong and intense in flavor. So I'm kind of, you know, going against the rules, so to speak. But I am a huge fan of mushrooms, clearly. So I'm just trying out all of the mushroom flavors. With the dried shiitakes, if you have a stem, please make sure to cut that off unless you enjoy chewing forever. Okay, so all that I'm going to go ahead and do now is... Also, I wish you... Here, I'm just going to show you the mushroom stock because, good God, that looks delicious. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my stove on to medium, and I kind of chopped up like a tablespoon of butter, just to get that going. I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil just so that I don't know if you watch as much Food Network shows as I have, but that actually increases the like smoking point because butter burns really easily. Okay, so we're gonna get that pot nice and hot, and then we're gonna get our shallot in there and going, and then we're gonna put our mushrooms in. Now, the point of putting the mushrooms in is to kind of sort of sweat them out, but make sure that they're cooked through first before you start adding in the rice and building as we go. Okay, just all the things. I'm like forgetting all the stuff. Please do not forget to have like decent Parmesan to help you finish it. Okay, if you don't, that's fine. It just helps it give that kind of like smooth quality. I'm sure you can hear my shallots. You want to cook them until they're translucent. I'm going to go ahead and start dumping in the mushrooms. Mushrooms release a lot of moisture, so there's kind of that piece too. You don't want it to get, again, like watery, right? We want it to be nice and flavorful. So I'm going to go ahead and get those puppies in, kind of stir it about. Again, from my mushroom guy, I was like, what is the best dish for mushrooms? I love them. I know that that's not the case for everybody. But I was like, I'm just curious, like what's the best cooking method? You know, should I be putting them in pastas or like pizza, or is there some better way to cook them? And he's like, honestly, mushrooms and butter. That's it. So I was like, okay. So when I bought the morels, I was thinking to myself, what better way to cook morels than with risotto? It's slow. It's a labor of love. You cannot leave the stove. You are stirring machine for essentially like 30 minutes. Unless you have a gas stove, in which case, congratulations. I would like to be you someday. I'm not yet, but anyway, so he's like, mushrooms love butter, period. So just fry it up with some butter and you're good to go. So I'm like, okay, well, risotto seems like a good in between. This is the first time I'm using this many mushrooms though. I'm very used to making risotto with like white button mushrooms that don't taste like anything. Really, this seems kind of like more of a birthday. We just had Christmas, so I mean, you could do this for New Year's, your mushroom friend's massive birthday. Okay. The next step is I think we're gonna put the rice in, and make sure that it gets kind of like nice and coated, kind of like Uncle Ben's. Like you want to make sure that they're sort of like toasty, so that they're ready to absorb all of the lovely mushroom stock and regular chicken stock, along with this, like a half a cup of wine. So let me just show you kind of what the mushrooms look like. Okay, you'll notice that it's decreased in volume. Okay, so it's shrunk down, which means some of that water has come out. It's getting a nice toasty brown color. Okay, none of them are burnt, but they're gonna get there. Go ahead and add our cup of rice. Okay. We're gonna let that cook for probably about a minute or two. So I'm just gonna stir it and get it all nice and going. You want to make sure that you're adding the stock a little bit at a time. You're adding the stock a little bit at a time, and you're constantly stirring and watching the rice absorb the stock. Once it looks like it's pretty absorbed, you're going to go ahead and add in. It's kind of like a ladle at a time, essentially. So you should have your stock like warmed and ready to go in another pot, which is exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to go ahead and get this puppy going as well. So I'm only going to be adding about half a cup of wine. Please do not get Chardonnay as well. just in case they're in oak bottles or oak barrels, excuse me. Thank you, Zach, for that comment, because then it's just going to intensify whatever flavor you are cooking with. Okay, for people that say it doesn't matter what kind of alcohol you're using when you cook, that is a lie, because alcohol intensifies when you cook with it. So make sure that you always use alcohol that you would be willing to drink. So I've added my half cup of wine. Not that you have smell-o-vision, but it definitely smells like that. Okay. I'm keeping it on medium, but just to kind of give you a look. Okay. You want to make sure you keep stirring that. Okay. It hasn't absorbed the liquid yet. You'll be able to tell because it gets a little bit more dense. I actually might turn this down a little bit. Because we don't want it to evaporate, the broth, we want it to incorporate in. Now, what makes risotto delicious is the fact that you can't leave the stove. It is a labor of love. If you leave the stove, things will stick, things will burn. You don't want that to happen. Okay, okay, let me kind of show you. So this is true when you make like cream sauces, but if I can, you notice how I can make that kind of line. It's ready for more stock. Okay, so again, I'm just gonna pull small amount in at a time. And stir like my life depends on it. It should take you about 30 minutes on an electric stove. I'm assuming about half that time if you have gas, just because gas cooks everything a lot faster. But yeah, I'm not gonna do a 30-minute video. It's already about 10 minutes currently. So I'm just gonna keep stirring. Whenever you notice you're able to kind of make that line through your pot, then you are ready to add in more. Notice I'm using a big pot because I am going to be adding about roughly about 6 cups of stock, okay, which is a lot of stock, okay, so make sure that you are using a big pot for this as well. If you haven't, make sure that you do so now. Oh, all right, I forgot how much of a workout this is. Make sure you switch hands and that you're scraping down the sides so all of the pieces of rice are getting nice and happy. I'm just going to show you what 3 cups of stock going into this rice looks like so far. So you'll notice that the rice is getting kind of nice and plump. They're no longer translucent. And yeah, it's going to, I'm definitely going to have to freeze some of this. Unless someone who lives nearby would like some, I'm just going to go ahead and add more of the stock in because it's craving it. But yeah, keep stirring. When we're almost near the end, I've pretty much been stirring and cooking this for maybe about 30 minutes now. So 15 minutes of actual stirring. I should probably switch hands. So yeah, it should be about done relatively soon. Please, before my hand falls off. Holy mother. Okay, so I forgot that I live at a higher altitude, so it takes a little bit longer. It's about 40-ish minutes now. I'm going to show you what the risotto looks like so you kind of have an idea. I'm just stirring out the rest of the stock, but that kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like. So you can tell that the rice is cooked through. I don't like stopping at al dente because I just don't. That's a personal preference. Do whatever makes you happy, for sure. So the only thing I'm going to do to finish this is, in the words of Anthony Bourdain, or Bourdain, however you're supposed to pronounce his last name, butter is the difference between home cooked and restaurant. So I have a tablespoon of butter that I'm just going to go ahead and slide in. The beauty of it as well is we're adding a luscious sort of fat to the risotto. So it's going to give it a nice sort of sheen. So there's that piece. And as promised, we are going to add in some Parmesan. So went to Whole Foods to buy mushrooms, got some Parm. I'm probably going to put in about half a cup. Really, I like cheese, so, you know, I'm not really measuring, mostly because I don't care. Also, I love cheese. So either way, it's going to be great. I'm going to go ahead and take that off the heat and stir the cheese in. And again, because there's so few ingredients that go into this, you want to try and get at least like halfway decent ingredients when you do make the risotto. Oh, I wish you were here. Okay. Let's go ahead and plate this. So you'll notice that, I wish I could show you actually. You'll notice that all of the mushrooms are still like relatively fully intact. Oh man. Oh, I'm such a happy girl right now. And that is risotto. It's a labor of love for sure, but not that many ingredients. It does take a whole lot of time, but now I can share this with whoever wants to come over if you're feeling some mushroom risotto. But yeah, that is Queen Kongsan with another cooking video for you. I should have another one coming up shortly. I'm going to try and make pasta from scratch. That's going to be interesting and potentially may not go well. Anyway, until next time, see y'all. Peace.